You are our brothers, she said, around that campfire at night in Menopause, 1990, in the Karen State. As a member of the ABSDF, I asked her, Mata, have you ever been in love? And she said, yes. And she told the soldiers, just like the civil disobedience movement today is telling the whole world, she's telling the soldiers, the terrorist group in Myanmar, we love you. We are from the same country, the same culture. Many of us are from the same family. You are our brothers and sisters. What an epic expression of civil disobedience. What an epic expression of metta in action. What an epic expression of compassion in action. What an epic expression of resurrection, of Dhamma in action. What an epic expression of courage in action. What a timeless biblical expression of conscience, the soul of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. In action. Yet the whole world, all the armies, all the leaders, all the prime ministers, all the ambassadors, basically don't care to act on what Ma That Luin did, which was to have ethical courage, conscience to care in the face of Satan, of evil. And she told me around that campfire that night in Menopause that the soldiers, the terrorist group back in 1989, 88, Burma, had orders to shoot, and they shot. And they killed my mother, a bullet hole right through the head. They killed my auntie. They killed many of us right there as we knelt, chanting to them, we love you. You are our brothers and sisters. Easter weekend, the resurrection, the betrayal of Judas, the betrayal of the world to Burma, the betrayal of the world to freedom, not just Burma, the betrayal of the world community to democracy, the betrayal of the world to their own conscience. Jesus on the cross, they know not what they do. What an epic expression of compassion in action. They know not what they do. The treachery of awakening to the machinations of this ecosystem of mental and physical cognitive qualities called samsara in the Buddhist tradition. They know not what they do. What is this evil programming that we're forced to participate in, right? I wrote a book. It's not even a book, it's a scream of my response to the madness, the tapestry of intersecting genocides and horrors. What does it mean to keep alive the radiance of your sanity, your conscience, your dignity, pull out every stop? Why inhibit and censor anything, anymore, anywhere, any time, and any place in our lives? The madness is so deafening as the cobra head of the Fourth Global Reich is rearing its satanic, pandemic, global, authoritarian, communistic, oligarchical, digital, transhuman head as we keep our blind foot of denial on the gas pedal of unbridled fetishism of consumerism and of fossil fuels and of fear and of denial and of ignorance. And isn't that the dilemma of the human brain, the human mind, life? The duality of right and wrong, good and bad, but also the duality of eyes wide open and basically blind to reality. The hallucination of beliefs that are diametrically opposed to your own well-being. The perversion of concepts for the sake of preservation of yourself at the murder and the death of others. Unthinkable self-serving delusions. They've been talked about endlessly, philosophically and psychologically. They've been talked about in religions and meditative circles. But here we are at the existential wall of self-annihilation as a species and taking out the majority of non-humans as well. And I'm around that campfire with my friend Mata Telwin, and I'm asking her, have you ever been in love? And she says, yes. And they had orders to shoot, and they shot, and we ran. And my fiancé and I and other students ran into the jungles, and they chased us, thinking that we were the leaders of the uprising in Taunji. And after 10 days of hunger and starving and and insect bites, there was a firefight. And they separated us, and I was separated from my greatest love in life, my fiancée. And she looked at me that night in Menopause around that fire and that campfire with gunshots and of trauma and of nausea and of malaria and of vomiting and of singing and of love, all the dualities. I never saw him again. And she said, Alan, you asked me if I've ever been in love. Yes. I am still in love, but I dare not contact him if he's even alive, or his family, for fear of persecution. Time for me stopped. And she concluded that even if I die, if my life continues to be in service of democracy and freedom and the radiance of universal human rights, the right to sing, the dance, to create without fear of persecution and violence, she said to me, I will die in love. I never saw Ma That-Win again for the next 13 years. And I was told by someone when I was in Brisbane on a book tour, a Burmese man came up to me who was around that campfire in Menopause 13 years before, and he says, Mamila Kimya, do you remember me? And I said, Mamami Babu Kimya, I don't know. No. He says, I was around the campfire that night with Ma That-Win. When you asked her, have you ever been in love? And I spoke with her just yesterday. She's in Sydney with her husband and 2 children, and she's dying with cancer. She was led into Australia as a refugee, oddly, because she was terminally ill. I went the next day, rented a car in Sydney, found the home, knocked on the door, taken to a hospital bed in her very modest home out in Parramatta. And we instantly recognized each other. And there she was, so unthinkably thin and frail, dying from cancer with her 2 twin children. This was not her husband from the time of the uprising in Taunji. She thinks that he was murdered. And we talked, and she asked me, "Do you remember what you asked me?" And she said, "You know, I'm going to die in love because I know my life has been in service of democracy, freedom, and the luminosity of universal human rights." Okay? People of Burma today have a long, long lineage of radical courage. I share this story from 88, 89, 90 in honor of the girls and boys, the men and women, the nuns and monks in Burma who have died, not just recently, who've been murdered and terrorized, but the thousands who've been tortured to death in the prison camps in Burma. The ethnic groups who know better than anyone the tyranny of this satanic terrorist group in Naypyidaw, that it's attacking them, and it has been attacking them for decades, killing them, persecuting them, starving them to death, depriving them of medicines and food and shelter and safety. This is the nature of this planet, of countries. We're in a tapestry of good and evil. Here we are on Easter Sunday, the epic battle of love and darkness, of good and bad, right and wrong. I'll conclude today I'm hanging in. It's nothing compared to the people of Burma who are fighting on. But if anything means anything to me today, really deep in my soul, it'd be easy to say it's the power of love. Yes, that's important. But just as you and I do not know many of the millions of people who have lived before us, who've sacrificed their lives, their time, to struggle against tyranny, to struggle against violence, to illuminate the appropriateness of justice and rule of law, of democracy and freedom. They've kept freedom alive at all costs. We don't remember them. We're paying honor to them, just as I'm paying honor to my friend Mathet Thet Luen and all the boys and girls in Burma and men and women who have died over the years. All the people on this planet who have died, tortured, and been killed over these years. May we, as non-combatants, if you will, for the elevation of love and freedom, but warriors of this powerful force of freedom, may we do everything humanly possible in our power, in our little way, in our grand way, to keep alive here on this incredibly holy, mystical weekend of the resurrection of Christ and the ongoing persecution of the people in Burma and the ongoing courage of the people to confront the injustice of the terrorist group in Burma, Masak. May we, in our own human way, within this tapestry of darkness, this tapestry of samsara, may we fight the good fight and keep freedom alive. I'll close with a story that I came across the other day of a Holocaust survivor, an old man who was filmed, and he was asked, you having survived the horror of the Warsaw Ghetto, you having survived the horror of Auschwitz, evil upon evil, as he said, a situation where there was the absolute absence of hope. I can't imagine what it must mean to be with your allies, your spiritual allies. A Jesus, you and me, with our best friends, our holy alliance, our apostles, not our devotees, but our clan, our communion of sacred allies. And yet, by human frailty, there's one among that clan that chooses profit and power and privilege and the preservation of those very human, temporal, compromised, insipid aspects of life, chooses those over the alliance of the holy, and does what's called betrayal. Turns in, betrays the alliance of the holy to increase profit, privilege, power, and the preservation of one's own interest, safety. So epic. And they come and they take you. They take Jesus. They take you. We are now Matet Tet Loin. We are Jesus. And they strip you of your clothes. They take your home. We hear the word cancellation today, cancellation culture, deplatforming. The Berlin burning of books, May 10, 1933. There's still copies of those books, although they were burned. Today, in cancellation culture, the digital absolute removal in the memory hole, gone. All digital copies instantaneously disappear. It doesn't exist anymore. So trans-Orwellian are we in this emergence, I feel, of a Fourth Reichian absolute authoritarianism where we're not even sure of who to believe, what to trust. The prophet of Anthony Fauci, with clear connections to a bioweapons lab in Wuhan, and deep in the pockets of the vaccination cult of these big pharma. And we're told to believe that he's the Messiah of health and decency. And yet, my gut tells me he's a Judas. And it's like, oh my God. And all of a sudden, I'm around that campfire and someone's asking me, Alan, have you ever been in love? You've got a passport, Alan, back to the sacred land that you called your democracy. But I am now in the jungle of no hope. Reversals, and I'm going like, oh my God. And Jesus is then forced to carry that cross. It's unthinkable. Unthinkable. Collapsing once, twice, 3 times. And the only people who stayed with women. There's a heartbreak in all this, and there's a resurrection of beauty as well. And then being nailed to a cross, man, that is so sick and crazy, and it's so real. And we take it all so for granted, a bullet hole through the head of a boy and girl in Burma today. How could that not be a bullet hole through the head of our own child? Where is the United Nations Security Council on the holiest fucking day in the universe for the Christians in the world and for those who care about the mysticism of a world gone mad? We're at that beachfront where there's a tsunami without a warning, and all of a sudden the 6th mass extinction is rearing its head like an all-consuming cobra, a phantom, a terrorist group. And just like Michio Kaku tells us in his book, I've written about it in Extinction X-Rated, in an instant there is no more life. Whoa. And yet, I'm on the cross, nailed and they're bargaining and mocking with my belongings on Wall Street and in Silicon Valley, counting the loot, counting the money. It's the theater of the sick. And yes, I wrote a book that's theatrically sick, but it's my struggle to prevent self-annihilation through self-suicide. I went so deep in there. I don't know about you today, but my heart is shattered in 1,000 different pieces. I do not know where it's coming from. I am drawing hope by projecting into the boys and girls in Burma, into my friends who are incarcerated in the prison camps of Burma. Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, my ally, my mentor, my friend, a fellow sister who trained and lived and breathed in dialogue with the same teacher, Seda U Pandita. The likelihood of her spending the rest of her breathing existence behind bars in a prison is almost certain. Where are you, world? Up on the cross, Jesus. Look at all the Judases out there that threw her under the bus. And you can hear Judas's friends and allies high-fiving him, man. You didn't sell out the dude, man. You did the right thing, Judas. You did the right thing, Judas. Look at how the world just high-fived Ming Online in Burma. Look at how Xi Jinping in China gets a high five from the Security Council. Hey, dude, man, you're on the right track. We got to talk to you about how to create a prosperous planet. You high five, man. This is like the devil slapping high five the devil for me. The perversity of this whole arena. Beam me up, take me out, put me into another universe, another dimension. Yes, my days are few. The jet fuel of adrenaline to keep up the activist heart and life, not easy today for any of us. I'm drawing strength from those people who are living really radically difficult lives. This Holocaust survivor, he said to the interviewer, "You ask me what I think should be done? Wherever two people gather. Freedom is so important to keep alive." I'm paraphrasing. Talk about freedom, even if it's just to one person. Talk about freedom to the moon, to the sun, to the rainbow in one's heart. Talk about the freedom of resurrection. Talk about transcending the evil of a Judas, transcending even the need for forgiveness, transcending. He said, keep alive every possible word, phrase, story about the meaning of freedom to you with one person, even for a minute or two when you gather on a bench, online, in a text, in a video. They're coming after us. They want our money. They want our hands. They want our minds. They want. And propaganda is alive and well today. We're being led to believe that Satan is Jesus. We're being led to believe that the devil is dressed like a Buddha. One has to be extremely discerning today to really understand the impulses of safety and privilege and power. And I beg that we really study. Tomorrow I'm going to talk more about the meaning of freedom to me, and resurrection and redemption and keeping high freedom. But to really study the feelings, the principles, the values of freedom, and nurturing as we would our health, nurturing the health of our courage, nurturing the health of our ethical commitment to be more and more determined, if you will, to live and breathe courage, not as a concept. We can't drink the word courage and feel courageous. We must get into the ocean of courage, feel it, breathe it, be nurtured by it, and let it radiate through thoughts, speech, and actions that elevate our own freedom and the freedom of others. And that's where I'll end today in honor of Matet Nguyen. Her life was in service of freedom. I hear my friend Daw Aung San Suu Kyi that our revolution of the human heart against evil, the resurrection of it, is in the courage to care about things larger than one's own self-interest. And she said, what that means to me is the courage to see the truth of a circumstance, determine if it is self-serving or whether it is uplifting to self and other, and then to feel that truth, and then to act on behalf of that truth. See, feel, act. And here we are on the cusp of the resurrection, and it's, to me, the courage to see, feel, and to act for the greater good, for the power of love in the face of madness. Despite the tsunami, let us keep our radical, creative expression of love in the time of madness as a priority of our lives. And even if it comes to your partner, your daughter, your son, your God, your Jesus, your Allah, your Buddha, your conscience, your dignity, let's talk. Keep the conversation of freedom alive in this world so that even after we die, this radiant quality is something that the future of life can enjoy. So from my heart to yours, thank you for allowing me to move through the complexity of my own process on this holiest of weekends for me here in America. So have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.